Failure. It's a word that many of us fear. It's often associated with defeat, shame, and embarrassment. When we fail, it feels like we've reached the end of our journey, like we've reached a dead end. But the truth is, failure is not the end of the road. In fact, failure is just a part of the process, a necessary step toward growth and success. Take a moment to think about some of the most successful people in the world. You'll find that behind every one of them is a story of failure, a story that was once filled with rejection, disappointment, and frustration. For example, Thomas Edison, one of the most famous inventors in history, failed thousands of times before finally inventing the light bulb. Thousands of failed experiments, countless sleepless nights, and a lot of hard work. Yet, instead of giving up, Edison saw each failure as a step closer to success. And then there's Michael Jordan, widely regarded as one of the greatest basketball players to ever live. But did you know that he was once cut from his high school basketball team? Imagine that. The very player who would go on to become a global sports icon was once told he wasn't good enough. That's a tough pill to swallow. But instead of quitting, Jordan used that failure as motivation to work harder, to improve, and to eventually become the champion we all know today. Another example is Steve Jobs, the visionary behind Apple. Jobs was fired from Apple, the very company he founded. After being ousted from the company, he could have easily given up on his dreams, but instead, he continued to innovate. He went on to create Pixar and return to Apple, revolutionizing technology in ways that changed the world. Jobs himself said, "Sometimes life hits you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith." That's the mindset that turned failure into success. So, why do we fear failure so much? It's because we often see it as something personal, a reflection of our worth. We think that failure means we aren't good enough or that we'll never be able to succeed. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Failure is not a reflection of who we are as people. It's simply a part of the process. It's a tool for learning, for growth, and for becoming the best version of ourselves. In fact, if you're not failing, it might mean you're not pushing yourself hard enough. Think about it. If you're always playing it safe, if you're never challenging yourself, you'll never experience failure, but you'll also never experience growth. The only way to grow, to achieve greatness, is to take risks, to step outside of your comfort zone, and yes, to fail. Because failure is where the real lessons lie. It's where we find out what works and what doesn't. It's where we discover our true potential. The important thing is not to be afraid of failure. It's to embrace it. But how do we do that? How do we turn failure from something that scares us into something that empowers us? The first step is to allow ourselves to feel the pain of failure. When we fail, it's natural to feel disappointed, frustrated, and even angry. And that's okay. It's okay to feel upset when things don't go as planned. In fact, it's a healthy response. But the key is not to stay stuck in those feelings. It's important to allow yourself to feel the pain, acknowledge it, and then move forward. Because if we avoid those feelings, if we suppress them, they'll only hold us back. Instead of running from our feelings, we need to face them head on, learn from them, and grow stronger because of them. So once you've allowed yourself to feel the emotions, it's time to reflect on the experience. What went wrong? What could you have done differently? What did you learn from the situation? This is where the magic happens. This is where failure transforms from something negative into something incredibly valuable. When you take the time to reflect, you gain insight into your mistakes. You understand what went wrong, and you can develop a new strategy. This is the most powerful part of the process, learning from your mistakes and using that knowledge to do better next time. But this requires honesty with yourself. You have to be willing to admit where you went wrong and be open to change. Growth doesn't happen when we're comfortable. It happens when we challenge ourselves to improve, to do better, and to learn from the past. Once you've reflected and learned from your failure, the next step is to take action. Don't just sit there and dwell on what went wrong. Create a new plan, a new course of action, and start moving forward again. Break down your goals into smaller, achievable steps. Taking small actions every day will bring you closer to your bigger goal. It's all about persistence and consistency. Think about how you can improve each day. What can you do today that will bring you one step closer to your goal? Even if it's a small step, it's still progress. And progress, no matter how small, is the key to overcoming failure. As you keep pushing forward, you'll start to see improvements. You'll begin to notice that you're getting better, stronger, and more capable. And the more you improve, the more you'll realize that failure is just a stepping stone on the path to success. There will be times when you feel like giving up, times when the road ahead seems too difficult, too overwhelming. It's during these moments that you need to remind yourself of the bigger picture. Remember why you started in the first place. Remember the dreams, the goals, and the vision that motivated you. You are capable of achieving greatness, but it won't happen if you quit. Whenever you feel like giving up, take a look at the stories of others who have overcome failure. There are countless examples of people who have faced insurmountable odds and yet, through perseverance and hard work, have achieved incredible success. Let their stories inspire you. Let them remind you that you are not alone in this journey. You are part of a much larger story, a story of resilience, of overcoming obstacles, and of achieving greatness despite the odds. The truth is, failure is not something to fear. It's something to embrace. It's an inevitable part of the journey to success. Each failure brings with it a lesson, a chance to grow, and a step closer to your goals. So don't be afraid to fail. Be afraid of never trying. Be afraid of never learning from your mistakes. Because it's through failure that we discover who we truly are, and it's through failure that we become who we were always meant to be. Remember, failure is not the end. It's just the beginning of something greater. Keep moving forward, keep learning, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself.